Footnote 150 of Aphorism 270. One third of 100 grains sugar of milk is put in a glazed porcelain mortar, the bottom dulled previously by rubbing it with fine moist sand. Upon this powder Upon this powder is put 1 grain of the powdered drug to be triturated, 1 drop of quicksilver, petroleum, etc. The sugar of milk used for dynamization must be of that special pure quality of long bars. For a moment, the medicine and powder are mixed with a porcelain spatula and triturated rather strongly 6 to 7 minutes with the pestle rubbed dull. Then the mass is scraped from the bottom of the mortar and from the pestle for 3 to 4 minutes in order to make it homogeneous. This is followed by triturating it in the same way 6 to 7 minutes without adding anything more, and again scraping 3-4 minutes from what adhered to the mortar and pestle. The two-third of sugar of milk is now added, mixed with the spatula, and again triturated 6 to 7 minutes, followed by scraping for 3 to 4 minutes and trituration without further addition for 6 to 7 minutes. The last third of sugar of milk is then added, mixed with the spatula, and triturated as before 6 to 7 minutes with most carefully scraping together. The powder thus prepared is put in a vial, well corked, protected from direct sunlight, to which the name of the substance and the designation of the first product marked is given. In order to raise this product to RRR, 1 grain of the powdered RRR is mixed with the third part of 100 grains of powdered sugar of milk, and then proceed as before, but every third must be carefully triturated twice thoroughly each time for 6 to 7 minutes and scraped together 3 to 4 minutes before the second and last third of sugar of milk is added. After each third, the same procedure is taken. When all is finished, the powder is put in a well corked vial and labeled RRR. If now 1 grain of the last powder is taken in the same way, 1 divided by 10th lakh, that is 1 each grain containing 1 divided by 10th lakh the original substance. Accordingly, such a trituration of the 3 degrees requires 6 times 6 to 7 minutes for triturating and 6 times 3 to 4 minutes for scraping. Thus 1 hour for every degree. After 1 hour, such a trituration of the first degree, each grain will contain 1 divided by 000 of the second, 1 divided by 1 lakh, and then third 1 divided by 10th lakh of the drug used. Mortar, pestle, and spatula must be cleaned well before they are used for another medicine. Washed first with warm water and dried. Both mortar and pestle as well as spatula are then put in a kettle of boiling water For half an hour, precautions might be used to such an extent as to put these utensils on a coal fire exposed to a glowing heat. Footnote 151. The vial used for potentizing is filled two-thirds full. Footnote 152. Perhaps on a leather bound book. Footnote 153. They are prepared under supervision by the confectioner from starch and sugar and the small globules freed from fine dusty parts by passing them through a sieve. Then they are put through a strainer that will permit only 100 to pass, though weighing 1 grain, the most serviceable size for the need of a homeopathic physician. Footnote 154. A small cylindrical vessel shaped like a thimble made of glass, porcelain, or silver with a small opening at the bottom in which the globules are put to be medicated. They are moistened with some of the dynamized medicinal alcohol, stirred and poured out on blotting paper in order to dry them quickly. Footnote 155. According to first directions, one drop of the liquid of a lower potency was to be taken to 100 drops of alcohol for higher potentization. This proportion of the medicine of attenuation to the medicine that is to be dynamized 100 is to 1 was found altogether too limited to develop thoroughly and to a high degree the power of the medicine by means of a number of such a succussion without especially using great force, for which wearisome experiments have convinced me. But if only one such globule be taken, of which 100 weigh 1 grain, and dynamize it with 100 drops of alcohol, the proportion of 1 to 50,000, and then even greater will be had. For 500, such globules can hardly absorb 1 drop. For their saturation with this disproportionate higher ratio between medicine and diluting medium, many successive strokes of the vial filled two-thirds with alcohol can produce a much greater development of power. But with so small a diluting medium as 100 to 1 of the medicine, if many succussions by means of a powerful machine are forced into it, medicines are then developed which, especially in the higher degrees of dynamization, act almost immediately but with furious, even dangerous violence, especially in weakly patients, without having a lasting mild reaction of the vital principle. But the method described by me, on the contrary, produces medicines of higher development of power and mildest action, which, however, if well chosen, touches all suffering parts curatively. In acute fevers, the small doses of the lowest dynamization degrees of these thus perfectly medicinal preparations, even of medicines of long continued action, for instance belladonna, may be repeated in short intervals in the treatment of chronic diseases. It is best to begin with the lowest degrees of dynamization, and when necessary, advance to higher, even more powerful but mildly acting degrees. Curatively, in very rare cases, notwithstanding almost full recovery of health and with good vital strength, an old annoying local trouble continuing undisturbed, it is wholly permitted and even indispensably necessary to administer in increasing doses the homeopathic remedy that has proved itself efficacious but potentized to a very high degree by means of many succussions by hand, such a local disease will often then disappear in a wonderful way. Footnote 156. This ascertain will not appear improbable if one considers that by means of this method of dynamization, the preparations thus produced, I have found after many laborious experiments and counter experiments to be the most powerful and at the same time mildest in action, that is, as the most perfected. The material part of the medicine is lessened with each degree of dynamization 58,000 times and yet incredibly increases in power, so that the further dynamization of 125th and 18th Sifet reaches only the third degree of dynamization. The 30th, thus progressively prepared, would give a fraction almost impossible to be expressed in numbers. It becomes uncommonly evident that the material part, by means of such a dynamization, development of its true inner medicinal essence, will ultimately dissolve into its individual spirit like conceptual essence in its crude state. Therefore, it may be considered to consist really only of this undeveloped conceptual essence.